Hello viewers from wherever you're watching us from. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we are broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Alo Sise, and this is the first episode of your weekly State of Affairs program here on QTV Gambia. Once again, Happy New Year to all of you, and for making State of Affairs one of the leading current affairs program here in the country. And there's no better guest to start this year than the Auditor General of the National Audit Office, Mr. Cherno Sowe. AG, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the program.
Thank you for having me, Ali.
Pleasure having you as my first guest for this year. I mean, you are appointed as the Auditor General. Quite controversial stuff around it, but we wouldn't go deep into that because the matter is in court at the moment.
Right.
But I mean, many will say, I mean, you take this appointment at a time when this matter is being challenged in court. In one sentence, how do you define this moment for you?
Well, obviously, for me, I just got appointed to the role. I just see that as a natural transition from when I was Director of Internal Audit. As you know, I was Director of Internal Audit for about 3 years. So when the position became vacant, the President rightly, who has the authority to appointed me as Auditor General. And then I just assumed the roles and responsibility of Auditor General.
Before we address some of the controversial issues, I mean, who is actually Cherno Sowe as far as, I mean, the audit space is concerned?
Well, Ali, that's a good question. I started my professional career at the Central Bank of the Gambia many years ago, and I was trained by the Central Bank in banking and finance at the University of Lincoln in the United Kingdom. And subsequently, I did my ACCA and an MBA as well. And then I came back home, and then worked for an NGO called Go for Gambia Women's Finance for a number of years, and then went to the US, where I have worked both in the private and public sector, first with the private sector and then in the public sector, working for the biggest pension fund in the world, the New York City Pension Fund, where I rose to the rank of Division Chief for Pension Accounting and Cash Control. And when I returned back a couple of years ago, I was appointed as Director General of Internal Audit. And whilst I was in the US also, I did the CPA, which is a Certified Public Accountant, licensed to practice public accounting, both in the state of California and as well as in New York. So that's the kind of experience I brought to the role, both having worked locally here as well as international, having worked both in the private and public sector. So in a nutshell, that's who I am. Like I said, my most recent appointment was at the Internal Audit under the Minister of Finance as Director General of Internal Audit.
Impressive. I mean, leadership transitions at the National Audit Office often signal shifts in direction. I mean, people have way and manner in which they deal with issues. In your case, I mean, what is the first thing, I mean, you have changed or did to change at the NAO?
Well, as you know, the transition wasn't very smooth. So obviously, the first thing I tried to do was to really find my footing, really to work with the management, my 2 deputies, to really determine what the priorities of NAO were. And at that time, major priority was really for the completion of the audit of 2023, the Gambia government audit. At that time, I think when I started the role around the 15th of September, we had barely 2 weeks to complete the audit. It was a critical moment, both for the government in terms of the commitment to produce the financial statement not later than September 30th, as well as the NAO, because there was a lot on the line, both in terms of commitment by the government and also financially, because if we met the deadline of producing the financial statement by 30th of September, then the government would be incentivized. They stand to gain financially. So that was my key focus at the time. and I ensured that we were able to deliver the financial statement. I came in the middle of almost at the tail end of the process, but obviously I had to push to ensure that within those 2 weeks we were able to complete the audit and then have it tabled by the Honorable Minister of Finance in front of Parliament, and have Parliament give the Auditor General authority to publish both the 21, 22, and 23 audit report. So that was the key priority for me when I started. Then obviously, as in any situation, I had to really understand the institution, because that was my first time having been appointed Auditor General, was to really look at our key priorities. I had to look at our strategic plan, which was just developed for 2025 and 2029, and see what the priorities for NAO are, and then to try to build on that and to ensure that we stay focused on those key objectives that we identify in the strategic plan. Obviously, I initiated some reform, mostly in the area of policy. I had to ensure that I get a handle on what goes on around the office, both in terms of finances, both in terms of staff management, ensuring that the NAO stay focused on its missions and vision. Obviously, there was a change of leadership, but the core mandate of the NAO still remained, and we were obviously laser focused on executing that mandate.
Like I said at the start of the program, your appointment has been one of the most controversial, one would say, in the history of this country. It follows the removal of your predecessor, Modou Cissé, an action that many argue violated, constitutional safeguards, meant to protect the independence of the institution. Do you believe your appointment actually followed due process?
I was appointed by a competent authority. The president, is the one vested with the constitutional mandate to appoint the Auditor General. So there is no question my appointment was followed due process. As regard the issue, I don't want to comment further, because it's a matter before the Supreme Court, and I would not like to comment on an issue that I'm already a defendant. So obviously, I'll just leave it at that, because let's just wait to see what the Supreme Court says about that.
Can you point to any specific, legal profession that in your own view actually validated this process?
What do you mean legal? Legal process?
Yeah.
In terms of
your appointment?
Well, like I said, this is something, Aliu, I think that because it's before the Supreme Court, as a matter of fact, and I'm a defendant in the case, and I think commenting on that in ongoing case may be inappropriate for me to do at this moment. Right now, I'm just laser focused on the task at hand, that is to execute my mandate as Auditor General, and to ensure that the National Auditor stays focused on its mission and vision. That is what I'm focused for now.
Like I said, we will not go deep into the matter. It is before the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But without actually addressing the merits of the case, like I said, before the court, what were some of the ethical considerations you weigh before actually accepting the position? Because already
I accepted the position because at the time of my appointment, the position was vacant. To the best of my knowledge, there was no controversy surrounding my appointment. So I accepted the position. Whatever happened, happened subsequently. And like I said, this is a matter that I don't think we should dwell on, because it's a matter before the court. But as far as I'm concerned, I do not see any issue with my appointment. And there was no ethical consideration, because there is no, the president who has the mandate to make the appointment made it, based on his constitutional mandate to do that. And I accepted the appointment. Yeah,
because the reason why I'm bringing some of these issues, this is your maiden interview since your appointment, and these are some of the issues that people are raising out there. Understood. And certainly they will expect me to ask this question for you Understood. To provide your own response, even though we'll get into the reforms and other stuff as far as the NAO is concerned. Still on the appointment, some claim or some critics, said, you are benefiting from what they say is potentially unlawful process.
I mean, that is for people to speculate on. Obviously, I have no control over what people will say. Generally, people are entitled to their own opinion. And like I said, this is a matter for the court to adjudicate. Right now, the case is in front of the Supreme Court. We can just wait until the process concludes. But obviously, people generally will speculate, and there's a lot of chatter around it. But as far as I'm concerned, I would not be distracted by that. I'm laser focused on the task at hand, and I'm doing my job and the way the Constitution mandated me to carry out the function.
How can the work of the office, the NAO, remain credible if actually the foundation of your occupancy, your appointment, is still being contested?
Well, I mean, that doesn't invalidate my appointment. The fact that it's been contested, I was duly appointed. I was sworn in as Auditor General. As far as I'm concerned, the charter is outside. At the level of NAO, I can tell you everybody is focused on doing the work. Since I got there on the 15th of September, there is nothing but seriousness in terms of commitment from the staff, and really been focused on getting the work done. And that has been manifested amply by the recent conclusion of the 2024 audit report, which is a milestone in itself, because that has ended the audit backlogs for the government of the Gambia. So obviously you can see that the National Audit Office is really serious at work, and we will leave the rest of the charter outside to happen. But inside the office, I can tell you, there is serious work. Both the management team and the staff are focused on getting the work done.
Will you credit your predecessor for this achievement?
Of course, obviously, this was a backlog that was inherited. So he had a part to play in that because he was doing the 21 and 22 audit and part of the 2023. So it's a continuous process. Obviously, we have a different approach in the way we govern, in the way we run things. So I am happy to share the credit with him. That's not a problem for me. But for me, what is important is the fact that this is a credit not actually to me or to the office, but to the country as a whole. Because for the first time, I think, in the history of the Gambia, we will be having current year reporting. By that I mean we will be reporting the 2025 audit of the government of the Gambia in 2025 itself. That's a big achievement. It has never happened, like I said.
Dealing with backlog of cases.
Yes. So and that what it does also, it enhances oversight and accountability, because if you're reporting current year rather than reporting 2 or 3 years down the line.
Sometimes 4 years back.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So sometimes personnel would have transitioned to something else, individual will have moved on. Yeah. So it's difficult under those circumstances really to have a credible oversight mechanism.
So at the heart of your appointment is the issue of independence of the National Audit Office. Many, see it as interference in the independence of the institution. Yeah. What have been some of the concrete measures you have put in place to ensure, that your audit reports remain safe from political interference?
Well, I think, Aliu, much of that is really a debate that is happening outside. But as far as the independence of the National Audit Office is concerned, that is enshrined in law. That is what the Constitution guarantees. And I can tell you, the Auditor General is not being interfered with. As far as I know, the way the audit process works, to a large extent, there is not much, an outsider can do to influence the audit. So I can tell you from the perspective of the independence of the audit office, it's there, it's guaranteed, both by the Constitution and the NAO Act of 2015. So with regard to that, I don't think that that's not my experience. I came from an internal audit background. I have worked at the level of the internal audit for almost 3 years as Director General. And, you know, during my tenure as Internal Audit Director General, we conducted the most consequential audit. As you know, internal audit probably is a lower key institution compared to the National Audit Office, but they do consequential audit, they do risk-based audit, and as well as ensuring that all government payments go through a vigorous payment process. And I have led that for 3 years. I have never had instances where that was interfered with. I have never had instances where individual called me to say, and there are occasions where we had stopped government payments, significant government payments, and because we thought they were not consistent with the law, there was supposedly some violation in terms of those payments not meeting the requirement as far as you know, having them, you know, to be in line with the financial regulations are concerned. So for me, the issue of independence is really sacrosanct for NAO, and I have no doubt that it's going to be the case whoever the AG is.
Like you said, independence for many is proven through action, not just by word of mouth or say, okay, it's guaranteed in the Constitution. Can you name perhaps one specific policies or decision that you have taken to ensure the autonomy of the office is not compromised?
Well, obviously, the Auditor General doesn't get dictated by anyone, and I am free to decide the entities to audit, the scope of the audit. So that independence means that you, as the Auditor General, can determine when to audit, where to audit, as far as it's a public institution that is vested with you know, the custody of public funds. So there is no limitation. There is no issue regarding you know, somebody interfering with that with that mandate. So and I think the other thing that you probably may like to know is that currently there is you know, an amendment to the 2015 bill currently being worked on, and that is also to further strengthen the independence of the NAO, both operationally and financially. And I think as we speak, that bill is currently making its way through Cabinet, and we are expecting that hopefully before the end of this year, it would have Cabinet approval and then be sent to the National Assembly for legislative action.
So, I mean, your critics have questioned whether you can objectively audit, I mean, the same executive arm that appointed you amid, I mean, controversy. Can you confidently tell our viewers that, you know, you are going to spearhead this office impartial?
Absolutely. I mean, every Auditor General is appointed by the executive, remember. The Auditor General is appointed by the President.
But not as controversial as
well,
yours.
I mean, sometimes there have been controversial appointment and removal, but notwithstanding, the independence of the office still remain. There is a lot of chatter about the removal of an Auditor General. But remember, the audit has a process, you know. There is not much in terms of if the issue is, are you going to be withholding audit reports? Are you going to be suppressing findings? You know, the way audits are done, that actually doesn't happen easily. Auditor General cannot just say, remove these findings or suppress this audit report. That's not how the audit works. Actually, I am the one to get to see the report. I'm the last to get to see a report. You know, it will have made its way through all fonts, all kinds of verification process. You know, once the audit is completed, it goes through a review process, and they would end up with the Deputy Auditor General for Technical, who would then do a final review before it comes to my desk. So even if I wanted to change something, you know, it's technically not possible. So, you know, I think there's so much, you know, being said about, you know, what the Auditor General can do in terms of suppressing audit or changing audit. That in reality doesn't actually happen.
So will you commit to publicly disclosing if there's any attempt by the government officials to interfere
Absolutely,
with an audit process?
Absolutely, I will. I don't expect that to happen because that has not been my experience. Like I said, I have worked in audit. I mean, this is not my first rodeo. You know, I just happen to transition from a lower responsibility, which is internal audit, to a much more bigger, high-profile position. But obviously, I'm not new to audit, and that has not been my experience. And where that was demanded, it's not going to happen. I am fairly independent. I am objective in what I do, and I'm fair as well. And that is the reputation I have. If you ask, colleagues within the government who have interacted with me, and there are a lot, from permanent secretaries to directors to ministers, I am very firm, in ensuring that the independence of audit, is maintained. So, and I do not plan to do otherwise. I don't think the executive would try. And if they were to, obviously, if the request was inappropriate, it would not be acted upon.
Did you lobby for the job, or you were just called by the president and said, Mr. Sowe, you are the next AD? I don't have to lobby for anything. I mean, I was good where I was. I mean, I was happy doing what I was doing. This was not in my radar. Like I said, the position became vacant, and I was appointed. Obviously, I'm a public servant. I mean, I like to work in the public sector. That's why I actually came back in the first place when I got appointed Director General of Internal Audit. When I got my appointment letter, you wouldn't believe this. When I looked at the salary, it was like per annum, it was quoted per annum. That was what I would earn every couple of weeks, because in the US I get paid fortnight. And I said, no, but then for me, I mean, public, because I am going to give back to my country, the country that has done so much for me. So money wasn't the issue. I was, like I said, happy doing what I'm doing. I am doing it for service, not for fame, not for money. Thank God I have money to survive on. And for fame, I am famous within the people who matters. That is my family and friends. So I don't have to lobby for anything. I'm good, and I think that... Are you prepared to vacate that office in the event that, the court rule against your appointment?
So we will cross that bridge when we get there, Aliu. So now the matter is in front of the court, but, we'll just wait for the court to decide, and then we'll... this is a law-abiding nation, and like I said, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Let's now move to the issue of the forensic unit. Staff safety and internal integrity and all those stuffs. There are serious concerns surrounding the forensic unit,
right.
AG. Particularly, there are claims of intimidation and interference. Will the forensic unit, under your leadership, continue to operate, with full autonomy? Selecting cases based on strictly on risks and not political sensitivity.
I am not sure where is that coming from. That's not my experience. Nobody's getting intimidated. Nobody's getting harassed. The forensic unit is doing its work. When I got there were a couple of 2 or 3 or 4 outstanding audit report that the forensic unit was working on. They have been outstanding for quite a while, and I had to push to ensure that, because it's important that the NAO also, in its auditing process, produce timely audits. So I had to ensure that, those audits, were focused on. We had to ensure there is resources committed to those audits so that they could be concluded, rather than, because at some point, sufficient resources were not committed to those audits, and they were just dragging on and on. So the idea that the forensic unit, it's been victimized or anything of that sort is actually false. It is quite the contrary.
Can you guarantee us that, no forensic investigator will be present under your leadership to alter or delay or whatsoever withhold findings?
I mean, it looks like you have not even been listening to what I'm saying.
Yes, that's what I'm exactly, yeah.
There is no way I can actually do that. Obviously, you know, the forensic audit team, you know, once they do their report, it's also subjected to a review. They don't have the final say on a report. You know, audit is not like, because we send sometimes fairly junior people in the field to go and do an audit. So obviously, when they come back with their draft audit report, it's subjected to review. And sometimes we can challenge them on the finding. Sometimes we can question, you know, the evidence. And sometimes we have to ensure that the finding, the evidence is there to match the findings. And, you know, occasionally you may have, you know, the report being tweaked for language, to ensure that it's clear for clarity. So aside from that, if there are genuine findings that are supported by the evidence, I can tell you those findings don't get altered, they don't get deleted, and that is not what audit is about. So, and I am not going to put my professional reputation into disrepute by demanding or asking for an alteration of those of an audit report if there is sufficient evidence to support the findings. And that is important, Aliu. That is not important. It's because sometimes they can go to the field and then bring us a draft report, and then we will review the report. Occasionally, we might have questions. And that is to ensure that we protect the integrity of the process. That's my job. You know, I want to ensure that every audit report that I append my signature on is credible, is something I can stand by, because I am the Auditor General. I mean, I am the one who signs the audit report, and I'm the one who is supposed to defend the audit report to the National Assembly and by extension to the public. So I have to be sure that everything in the audit report is credible, is something that is adequately, there's adequate evidence to support it before I append my signature.
So what was your knowledge of or your involvement in the seizure of the forensic investigators' laptops?
I think that, okay, in fact, this brings us, I think, back to the issue of the leaking of audit report. This is something I'm really determined to stop, because I think that, you know, it's unfair, not only to the auditee, it's also unfair to NAO as well as to the public. Because when you share draft audit reports that have not been finalized, and in between the draft and the finalization of the report, it can change for a number of reasons, you know, and I just mentioned that it can change because we are not sure about the sufficiency of the evidence that you've provided. It can change because we think that the language surrounding the report is not appropriate for the findings. So there is a whole host of things that that could result in the report, the draft report, being different, slightly different in some cases from the final audit report. So if you go ahead and then share the draft audit report to the public, you're misleading the public. You're not doing them a favor. You know, and I will also urge media houses that are publishing audit reports, they are not doing justice to the public, because they are publishing uncompleted work.
Maybe they do that because, okay, most of the time these reports are not published on time.
No. But Ali, you have to
or maybe
understand.
there's the perception, okay, this is a particular audit that is touching on a particular institution, and perhaps, you know.
No, but that has never happened, Ali. There is a mechanism how we publish audit report. Our mandate is whenever a report is completed, we send it to the National Assembly for them to discuss, because the public access information through the National Assembly. Right, that is they are the public. They represent the public. So what happens is, if the National Assembly do not discuss those reports, and there is unreasonable time for them to it has taken more than, you know, the time has passed that you think that this is unreasonable for them to not to discuss, then the Auditor General can publish. But normally what tends to happen is that the National Assembly will discuss the report, and once they discuss the report, then the Auditor General would publish those reports. I can tell you, every audit report will ultimately be published. If you go to the NAO website, you will find all the audit reports that we have done. So people that are sharing draft audit report are circumventing the rules. And I don't think any auditor that is what they assault, because we subscribe to audit standards, we subscribe to rules and regulations, to professional conduct. And I think that's professional misconduct. You know, publishing reports that are incomplete. Right now, if you think there is something that the Auditor General or the management is doing in terms of a report, you can, there's a whistleblower policy that we have now developed. You can use that. If you think the Auditor General is engaged in an unethical behavior, you can report that to the National Assembly. But what you cannot do is to share draft audit reports because you think that you know better than the Auditor General. So wait for the process to complete.
So what does your regulation says about that, leaking?
Oh, it's a clear violation. If anybody is caught leaking audit reports, then they will be subject to disciplinary action. So I mean, it could be anything from suspension, it could be dismissal. You know, I mean, you know, so there would be consequences because it's a criminal act. Nobody's allowed to do that. You can't do that. I mean, Aliu, I mean, your company here, I'm sure they have rules and regulations that if you violate, there will be consequences. It's the same thing. We have rules against doing that. So if you do that, then you face the consequences of your action. It's as simple as that. So when we confiscated those laptops, because we could narrow down the individuals that has handled the audit report. Can you imagine that audit report was not even seen by the auditee? You didn't even give them the benefit to respond to the audit findings, and that's part of the process. When we audit you, Aliu, we will give you the report and say, this is our finding, so react to the findings, react to the report, give your perspective about our findings.
But what evidence do you have to suggest that the leaking is coming from your office? It could be from the auditee.
No, because I just said that exactly, the auditee did not
It could be someone in the office who is not.
No, Ali, I said the auditee did not get a copy because they were surprised, because once the report was leaked, I was called by the auditee and said, what happened? We have not seen the report, and now it's been leaked in the social media pages, or at least there was an attempt so that's what we are trying to ensure it doesn't happen, because I think it is a disservice not only to the auditee but to NAO, because it puts us into disrepute. At some point, auditors will not trust us because we rely on the trust of the public to be able to do what we do. You know, if the public have no confidence in sharing documents, in subjecting themselves to our interview to gather audit evidence, then we will have a challenge, we will have a problem. So this is really for us to protect. It's not to conceal audit reports or to conceal evidence, but to ensure the integrity of the process is maintained. And I am determined to ensure that we bring that to a stop. I do not intend to pass this to the next Auditor General because it's an issue.
Is it true that you plan to conduct some sort of reshuffling in the office, moving some staff from one department to another?
Naturally, that happens all the time.
How will you justify that? For example, if I'm in
why would I not justify that?
If I'm in the forensic department, that's my area of specialty. No. Why will you move me to a performance audit or financial audit?
The National Audit Office is one entity, okay? And we can shuffle people around depending on where we need them to be. Everybody, you know, I can tell you,
it also has to depend on your specialty. For example, I'm a journalist. You're gonna take me to become a DJ. That's not my area.
I understand, but then I wouldn't single out any individual at the National Audit Office and call them a forensic expert. None, zero.
Really?
Yes.
So what
because
do you have
no, because doing special audit and using forensic methodology doesn't make you a forensic expert.
So what do you have then? What are they then?
So they audit, they use forensic methodology to audit, but that doesn't make them an expert. I'm saying that irrespective whether they're expert or not.
So what method does the experts use if they don't use the same methodology that this
No, what I'm saying is like, I mean, you seems to single out those individuals at the forensic unit as having special skills that can only be used. No, hold on. That can only be used at the forensic unit. No, The National Audit Office was doing special audits as long as it existed. We didn't call it forensic. It's always, actually, we don't even call it forensic audit. We call it special audit and using forensic methodology. Okay, so the National Audit Office, in its mandate, is allowed to conduct special audit, and that is what exactly we're doing. We just decided to have a name change here and then call it forensic audit. But like I said, this was being done as long as the National Audit existed, because it's in the law.
I understand you also, I mean, how to take your staff through another oath taking.
Absolutely.
What rule or legal, I mean, provision empower you to actually require staff to take another oath?
I can tell you. Hold on, Aliu. Okay. I mean, I think this is like speculation from outsiders, distractors that are probably feeding you with this question. Hold on.
But didn't it happen? Didn't it happen?
No, of course it did happen. And so I can tell you why. Okay. And I can tell you why, because it's in the law. It's in our act that every employee of the National Audit Office has to take an oath. Because it was not done, does it mean that doing it now is inappropriate?
They've never done that.
Well, previous Auditor General probably did not do it. I am doing it because it's in the law. I am not doing anything outside of the law and the regulation. I can tell you that. Everything that I am doing is within the law and the regulation. Okay? So the fact that it was not being done previously doesn't mean that doing it now invalidates it. No. And there's a good reason. And the oath is just the oath of office, the oath of secret is just a simple oath. I mean, I wish I had a copy and I'll see it. It's not controversial because
what is the content? What is the content of the oath?
I mean, the content just says, I mean, I think during the break, I will just pull it out and then let you read the content. And then you will see how non-controversial this is. This is just like saying that, I mean, I swear, to support the Constitution of the Republic of Gambia, the National Audit Office Act, the National Audit Office Service Rule. I'm just trying to remember some of the things. And also to swear that I will do my job without bias and do it with integrity and professionalism. And that documents that I have come across during the course of my work can only be used during the course of my work and would not be shared or made available to third parties without being legally required to do so. So that is what the oath is.
So what specific problem is the oath, meant to address?
Well, it's meant to address the fact that, because as auditors, we do come across sensitive information during the course of our work. And that information should remain confidential unless we are authorized to disclose it by law or during the course of our work. So, I mean, if I go to audit, if we go to audit a particular entity and then obtain confidential information, during our work, that information should only be used for the purpose of our work. It should not be shared with third parties. So there is a requirement for secrecy. And all senior government officials actually do swear to an oath of secrecy. So this is nothing unusual. It's not. It's not controversial. It's not unusual.
Is it just a formality, AG? I mean, like you said, most people, they take oath that, I swear to, protect the Constitution, this and that. But what they do is completely different.
Well,
it's just a formality.
That's left to them. Because if you hold the Quran and then swear by it, and then you said you're going to do this, and then you do otherwise, that's between you and your God. I mean, but obviously, the oath is the oath. But what you do after swearing the oath, we don't have control over. But obviously, a violation of the oath also have consequences.
So did this apply to the members of the senior management? And
everyone.
Okay.
No exception, except the house help. I mean, the cleaners, we call them house help. This is extended even to the drivers. Everyone.
So what happens to a staff who refuse or object to taking the oath?
Well, then you will probably find work elsewhere, because it's in the rules.
Could this also discourage, the issue of whistleblowing? Maybe sharing information for the best interest of the country? There could be something wrong happening in the institution that you might feel, if I don't share this out there, it's going to be detrimental to the national
No. Actually, we just developed a whistleblower policy. We don't have a whistleblower law, except some reference that is made in the Anti-Corruption Commission bill. But we took it further by developing a whistleblower policy. Currently, that is being reviewed by management as we speak, and it's going to be a policy. You will have a mechanism by which you will be able to be a whistleblower and not violate the rule. I mean, that there is a difference between being a whistleblower, because a whistleblower is saying something wrongdoing, and then reporting it. That's different from actually leaking draft audit report. That's criminal. It's as simple as that. The two are completely different. Yeah.
For many transparency advocates, I mean, they argue that the AG, I mean, should be among the most publicly accessible, I mean, government officials. In your case, will you commit to maybe perhaps organizing regular media engagement to update the public as to what is happening with regards to some of these?
I mean, I am still a public servant, Aliu. I still have to conduct my affairs in accordance with the public service rules. Obviously, it's important that the Auditor General, once in a while, do have an engagement with the media. At least this is why we've decided to, when you call, we decided to make ourselves available for this interview. It's just to ensure we communicate to the public, because we know the media plays a crucial role in educating the citizens. So obviously, we will occasionally, I'm not sure how frequent it's going to be, but occasionally we will make ourselves available to the media to ensure that we also transmit our message, rather than have other individual do that for us. But we keep saying, as auditors, we speak through our audit reports. So our audit reports are really what speaks for us. They contain all the audit findings, but occasionally there might be issues that the AG might want to talk about, or a member of the senior management might want to talk about, and the media is a good platform to engage. So this is something we will explore going forward. So,
I mean, since your appointment, I mean, what have you been doing to reestablish that partnership, that collaboration with your partners, international bodies, nationally? I mean, following that controversy, I mean, certainly it takes time to rebuild that partnership, that collaboration, that communication, and all that. How far have you gone?
I can tell you, Aliu, I think that the controversy that you alluding to since the beginning of the interview is really, in my opinion, limited to the most part to chatter in this, social media ecosystem, because I had a smooth transition, regarding, collaborations with my partners.
But not with your
national audit offices,
but not with your predecessor.
So for instance, AfroSAI, which is the association of supreme audit institution for African English-speaking countries, they had an induction for me, and I was also part of the delegation that went to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt as part of the INCOSAI 25th Congress, and where actually I had an opportunity to meet with other AGs and had bilateral meetings with a number of AGs, including our sister country, Senegal. I had a meeting with the AG of South Africa, who is actually the chair of, who's hosting actually AfroSAI. I also had a bilateral meeting with the AG of Kenya, Saudi, UAE. So, there's, Liberia. So there is a number of bilateral that I had. So at the level of our interaction, our commitment to the international organization, that I can tell you, it's been, I have been welcomed with open arms. Obviously, they are aware of the issue, But obviously, notwithstanding, for them, what is important is that the mandate of the NAO is implemented, and we stay focused on that rather than really on personality issues. Because obviously AGs would come and go. What is important is the institution, and that is what they are supporting, and whoever the AG is.
And personally, at the office level, I mean, what will you describe as the key challenges that you have inherited at the office that you intend to, I mean, address maybe in the next 6 months or 1 year, if you continue to be the AG?
Okay, I think that like any other institution, the NAO also has its own unique challenges, both in terms of obviously financial independence. We've been trying to get that addressed through the current NAO bill that is making its way through cabinet. It's going to ensure that the NAO is adequately resourced, which is important. And obviously also we have challenges in the area of human resources, because now our audit universe is expanding. Our audit entities are increasing every day or every year. So obviously we need to catch up in terms of having adequate human resources to be able to carry out those audits. Also having the necessary skills, because we also do what we call performance audit, that is a value for money audits, and there are certain skill sets that you need to be able to do some complex audit, like if you were to audit a road construction, for instance, or audit the healthcare system, for instance. You probably need skills like engineering background, let's say having a doctor, for instance. So those are skill sets you will see in other supreme audit institutions that we don't have. The intention is to try also to begin the, hiring individuals with those kinds of skill set, and that is what is part of my priorities, to ensure that, because we think that if you have a strong performance audit team, it can be a good thing for NAO, because I think that this is where we are going to have more value for money, looking at projects and making a deep dive in ensuring that the country is really getting value for money for what is being invested in. So, so those are some of the challenges that we have. Obviously, also right now, I had mentioned about human resources, and that is likely because where we are, our building, our head office is kind of also a little bit congested, because one thing that we don't do well, Aliu, is that we don't build for the future.
That's a problem.
So when they were building the office, I'm sure they just catered for the number of staff that were there at the time, and that number has almost doubled in size, as you can imagine. So it's one of our biggest challenges right now. We have vacancies that we want to fill, but having them, office space has become a problem. And because of that, we have slowed down on our hiring, even though there is a need for it. We have the budget for it. We have, we want to expand our audit coverage, but that's the key challenge that we are trying to see how we address by having additional office space. Obviously, having the necessary, individual, and trying to also ensure they stay, what I call staff retention, because audit is a very, it's a field that is in high demand, and especially staff that have worked for the National Audit Office, having the right experience, are easy target, by other employers. So we are constantly having to ensure that we try to retain our talents, and sometimes it's
pay them well and motivate them, and they will stay. That's all they need.
Yes, so we are working on that, ensuring relatively the pay is not bad, but obviously there are other things that you can do aside from money to ensure that you're able to retain your talents, making sure that the work environment is conducive, making sure that people are giving equal opportunity, and making sure that people are treated fairly. Those things are not necessarily financial.
Which is very important. Treating people fairly.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, in some instances, people will come and they will start that divide and rule. You will have some elements coming under you trying to tell or colleagues, images of other colleagues just to make themselves look good in your eyes.
Right.
So if you're not careful, sometimes they can mislead you.
So some of those things, yes. So obviously, those are things that they can be demotivating to individual if they feel that they are not considered as part of the team or they don't belong. And so we're having to address all those issues.
Okay. So finally, Honorable, in just under 30 seconds, I mean, your message to Gambians and all your partners and stakeholders.
So obviously, Aliu, I would like to sincerely reaffirm my deep commitment to this country and to serve with integrity, with independence and professionalism. The National Audit Office exists for one purpose only, and that is to safeguard public resources for the benefit of the public. And as AG, I am determined to ensure that under my leadership, that role would be carried out without fear, without favor, and without bias. I would, before I conclude, Ms. Aliu, I would want to urge all citizens to that, the National Audit Office will continue to produce credible and timely audit reports, and to work with the National Assembly and other regulatory bodies to ensure that we strengthen oversight and accountability over the use of public resources.
So thank you so much, Auditor General Cherno. So it's a pleasure having you on the program as my first guest, for 2025. I quite appreciate your time for being here. And of course, special thanks to your communications officers, Nancy and Binta, for actually, facilitating this interview. Well, viewers, with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of your weekly State of Affairs program. Do join me next week. Until then, bye-bye from me and the entire team.